we're doing something a little bit different. We're speaking with a certified financial planner professional to talk about the things he does to help his clients make better wealth decisions. There are certain things that you need to think about that oftentimes you might ignore or might not be aware of. We're going to be talking to an expert today who's going to help us walk through the things that you need to think about in order to make better wealth decisions. This is Make Better Wealth Decisions, a podcast about financial blind spots, decision making, and how the reality of higher rates, global tensions, and tariff instability impact your investments. I'm your host, John DeGuy, a portfolio manager with Design Securities in Toronto. My guest this week is Herman Chen. He is a certified financial planner professional and the president of Crimson Financial. He's a father of two. He loves playing basketball. He really wishes the Eagles could win another Super Bowl. And, I'm the father of one, and I really wish Canada could have won a couple of gold medals this past week. So, we have certain things that are more or less in common. How are you today, Herman?
Excellent, John. Excellent. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure to have you. And you're a unique guest because I very rarely, in fact, I may have almost never had a guest on who actually does financial planning, who might be seen as being a competitor to me, who does more or less the same thing. But it's great because I also like to talk about how the decision-making process works and how people make better wealth decisions in general. And I thought it would be good to have you on. So I want to begin by asking you an open-ended question. Your firm, you just created a firm of your own called Crimson Financial. Why do you call it Crimson?
Yeah, great question, John. More than happy to share the origin story behind the name. A couple of reasons. Number one, it's the same color as blood. I've done a bit of a medical professional focus. So there's definitely a connection there. And also it's a reference to helping people with intergenerational wealth transfer, which is also tied to blood and bloodlines, right? So that's another reason. And then from my original Chinese culture, it's also the color for good fortune. And the logo itself in my brand is the Chinese character for prosperity.
And it just rolls right off the tongue, unlike, say, Hemoglobin Financial, which just wouldn't work as well, right? So it's all right. So let's talk about your being at Crimson. You spent 18 years in the financial services industry, working for other places before you decided to form your own firm, which is Crimson. What would you say was the specific breaking point that caused you to make the move to being independent in the way you offer your services?
Yeah, another excellent question, John. It's a variety of reasons. Some of the bigger ones come to mind include being attracted to, being in a position or a role where it can truly make an impact on somebody's life. I've said this for many years, and I'm definitely not going to be the first or last to say this, but I do compare a certified financial planner professional and a professional advisor very similar to a family doctor. So I like to make that analogy a lot. The other reason is, truly helping people reach their goals. Another reason would be some of the lifestyles of the planners and advisors I've met over the years. They've done a tremendous job of really, whether it's balancing or integrating their work life with their personal life and be able to achieve more goals on both sides of the fence. That's been a big attraction as well. And I would say, lastly, I had an opportunity to help a younger, newer advisor on a very large, fairly complicated opportunity. And was able to help him and their center of influence, who happened to be a CPA accountant, really simplify the situation, but most importantly, help their new client take action.
So I want to ask a bit of an open-ended question. This is something that you might not have thought about. When you are helping people make better wealth decisions, what are the sorts of things that you believe they should focus on so they can synthesize information, filter it, and then make decisions with purpose and foresight?
That's a good one as well. What can we do? What can I do to help people, reach their goals? Really help them self-discover where they're at any particular time of their life and find out what they really want to do, which they haven't either done yet or haven't really crystallize those goals yet. So it really starts there, helping them kind of figure out where they're at and where they want to be in a short, medium, and long-term future. And then explain to them, here are some of the steps they can take. Sometimes people end up having multiple goals. And it's important to start, with one and take it one step at a time, as opposed to trying to do multiple things at the same time. And once they have a little bit more clarity and they're making progress towards some of those goals, it's going to help motivate them to achieve more.
So you mentioned earlier that you work with medical professionals, but you also work with real estate investors as being one of your other, let's call it a niche or area of specialization.
Mhm.
So those are two groups that tend to have unique situations, oftentimes complex tax structures. Let's start with the problems. What are the pitfalls that you would say are common among people that are either medical professionals or real estate investors that you are hopefully helping to alert them to proactively to prevent? And if they come to you after they're already in the problem, what can you do to solve them?
I would say some of the similarities, John, would be that find that most, whether they're medical professionals or real estate investors or both simultaneously, is that they're either fairly concentrated in a certain asset class or like maybe just two asset classes as opposed to multiple. So that's one. Two is that, deep down, they understand this once they meet somebody like myself and help them kind of self-discover. But as much as they try to separate the two worlds end up blending with each other. And it's important they work with a professional that understands both sides and understands both worlds and how they can integrate. Because if they make certain decisions, let's say within their corporation, that could, impact their personal life. But if they haven't really thought about both sides, it may not work seamlessly. And that goes for both medical professionals as well as real estate investors. And specifically real estate investors that have set up corporations for their real estate ventures. So it's important to, for these types of folks to have someone that can help guide them and help make sense of both sides of the fence again.
And so for instance, a lot of people should set up a corporation if they have the opportunity to do so. But then the question becomes, well, how do I pay myself? What do I take as a draw? That'll have an impact on my RSP contribution room, my ability to claim CPP down the road, and so forth. And then of course, well, what if I want to buy a residence because I'm still renting, and well, I'm going to need access to that money. So how am I going to take the money out? So there are, I think, decisions that you need to walk your way through as you're planning your life and building your portfolio and writing your financial plan that are not always obvious. And the answer isn't always the same. So, okay, so we talked about the things that you do proactively to help them. Let's talk about the flip side, the risks. Are there things that you would say that are unique to real estate investors or to medical professionals that you find that are problems that you find yourself consistently having to go back in and either resolve or proactively prevent, that are not as common with ordinary people, but that happen fairly frequently with real estate people and with medical people?
Yeah, John. Yeah, great question. This comes to mind and top of mind for sure are helping people realize that their number one asset is, may not be that degree on the wall or the condo that they first bought or the nice car in the driveway. It's actually their human capital and their ability to earn an income for the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, et cetera, right? So it's so important to have them properly insured. And what I'm referencing specifically is disability insurance. I feel it doesn't get talked about enough. Like I said, it doesn't matter if you're a professional outside of medicine or outside of real estate. If you're earning a really good income, it's super important to protect that because typically that is your number one asset before you start, growing your retirement accounts, growing your real estate portfolio. So it's one of those things that, yeah, you do buy it with dollars and money. But what you truly buy it with is actually your health, because if you don't have that, you can't qualify for it anyway. So I learned many years ago, having come up through the insurance side of the financial industry before I got involved on the investment management side and the full planning side, is that if you want to know how healthy you are, you should apply for insurance. And I would one up that by saying that if you really want to know how healthy you are, you apply for disability insurance.
Right. Because
so that's one idea there, John. The other one I would say is, they have both types of profiles. There is definitely a tendency to put all your eggs in one basket. I think I mentioned that a little earlier, but no, it's important to kind of have an overall look at somebody's net worth, overall look at somebody's asset mix. So they do have proper diversification, because sometimes one decision will lead to a decision you don't even get to make. So in referencing disability insurance, John, if somebody isn't getting the proper planning and tax guidance and they're not paying themselves enough of a salary, maybe they got advice on taking more dividends versus salary, let's say. It could potentially hinder qualifying for, proper coverage.
Good to know. Okay. And that's again, one of those blind spots that I think a lot of people might not intuitively think of, because it's just a one step removed. It's the first derivative of what happens as a result of a previous decision that may have made sense in a vacuum. But when you take a more holistic viewpoint, it's not always going to be what's best for you. Let's talk about part of what you do with Crimson is that you have a process that you call a care plan.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering what it means and how you measure the way you do things using a care plan.
Yeah, awesome question, John. So I've dubbed it the Crimson Care Plan, and this is something I've been fine tuning for many years. Having spent 18 years, a lot of it on the corporate side, I worked with many, many advisors. In fact, probably close to 200 plus independent advisors over my career. And I've admitted many times that a lot of the ideas aren't even my own. Definitely some of the best ones. I've borrowed from many people over my career. So I've kind of come up with sort of the greatest hits when it comes to my planning process. It involves a couple of things. Number one, I want to help somebody with a comprehensive plan first and foremost. So there are a lot of planners and advisors that want to focus on bringing in assets first. Some want to focus on insurance only or insurance first. For me, it's all about planning first. And that's what Crimson Financial is all about. So we try to gather all their information, gather all their documents, and get all their short, medium, long-term goals. And I stand on that for either a single professional or a couple to really take this process seriously. They need to have some sort of skin in the game, and that is, paying for that plan first. So they get a full plan done, and then they can take that plan, aka prescription, anywhere they want. But as a financial doctor, if you will, that's understand their entire situation, their hopes and dreams and their fears, etc. I'm in a prime position to guide them forward, and then we move into risk management and tackle some of those insurance needs that we just talked about, including disability, critical illness, and term life, and then move on to investment management. So it really is, what I learned many, many years ago, taking my certified financial planning courses and helping people out in this sort of way. But really having that strict process, I've found over the years to really give the results that they truly want. And then after that, I take it one step further. I will ensure that my clients get their wills and power of attorneys completed, whether they're a non-incorporated household or incorporated household, as well as, really make sure their estate planning is in place as well. So I've got professionals to refer them to, as well as an online platform to clearly map out those wishes as well.
It's ironic because next week I'm going to be speaking with Aaron Burry from Willful, and we're going to be talking about how it's important that everyone have a will and a power of attorney and an estate plan that is as comprehensive as it needs to be. And ironically, my wife is also an estate lawyer, so she so basically you can have the plain vanilla or you can have the more comprehensive. So we certainly agree that there are a lot of things of that nature. One of the things that you mentioned earlier, Herman, that I don't know if you've ever used the phrase, but it's a phrase that I've been using for 30 years that uses a metaphor of people that do financial planning being a lot like medical doctors. And the phrase is prescription before diagnosis is malpractice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a really good way. You wouldn't just go to a doctor and the doctor just writes out a prescription or whatever else without even, telling him or her where it hurts or why or what your symptoms are. Well, similarly, you should try to embark on your financial journey and in all the various vagaries that entails by looking at things holistically and getting a prescription that takes those things all into account. So it's useful. All right, we're getting close to the end, and I wanted to ask you about how people filter information. So making better wealth decisions revolves around making sure that everything is looked at and looked after. How would you say that you help clients reframe the market for professional uncertainty? Is that a competitive advantage of yours? How do you get people to think about things that they might not otherwise think about?
Oh yeah, for sure. I've come up with sort of all sorts of different ideas and strategies around this. Everybody's different. That's the first thing. Like every single person I interact with is different. Every couple is different. There's definitely similarities and themes that I've noticed over the years, But, I try to explain things in such a way that hopefully they will better understand and quickly understand. So I'll use more often than not, either medical analogies, sports analogies, TV show analogies, what have you, just some sort of way to connect with them and explain things, in an easy to understand manner. Because having, an amazing, well laid out plan is really important, but having proper execution is even more important. And I find that that's a challenge for a lot of people, right? So that's even after getting the plan. So using, analogies, storytelling, sharing different scenarios I've helped other clients with that could potentially resonate with them. And also taking it one step at a time, like I mentioned at the very beginning, right? Instead of doing like 5 things that you got to take care of right away, let's start with 1, maybe 2, and then do it sort of systematically, one step at a time. Other than that, I also give people a couple of options. I'm not going to say you have to do this because the analysis provided these outcomes. You have to do this way for this amount for this period of time. Typically, I'll give people a couple of options and kind of help them decide on what they're most comfortable with. But I think that increases, buy-in and more consistent execution.
All right. So we're at the end here. I always like to end the interview with the guest by talking about making better wealth decisions. You've got a unique perspective in what you do and who you do it for. If it was up to you, Herman, what advice would you give people listening today to help them make better wealth decisions?
I would say, you're not going to be surprised I'm saying this, John. I think the first step is reach out and find yourself a certified financial planner professional. And if you do find one and like that person, I encourage you to find and meet a second one.
Right.
And then decide for yourself which one's a better fit for you and your family. As much as every potential client is different, I also believe that every certified financial planner professional, financial advisor is different as well. So it's important to ask some tougher questions. John, I know you've mentioned this in some of your books in the past.
Yeah.
There's some really good questions you can ask a planner or advisor to see if they are the best fit for you and best suited for your situation. So I definitely encourage anybody listening to this podcast episode to do that and then make a decision on who to work with going forward.
Perfect. All right. Herman, I want to thank you for your time today. It's been a pleasure, and I want to wish you all the best with Gritson.
John, thank you so much, and I'm sure I'll see you again soon. Take care. Have a good one.
This podcast is not to be construed as offering specific investment advice. Please consult a qualified advisor before acting. My books, Stand Up to the Financial Services Industry and Bullshift, are available online. If you'd like to meet to discuss how the topics in this podcast affect you directly, please visit my website.